Taylor Swift staged one of the most private weddings in America. On July 3, 2026, Swift and Travis Kelce were married inside Madison Square Garden. Outside, police barricades, controlled entrances, and heavy media attention surrounded the arena. Inside, the details stayed remarkably contained. Only after the event did the marquee make the celebration public. But privacy on the ground is not the same as privacy in the air. A modern aircraft can broadcast its position, altitude, and speed about once every second. The signal was designed to help pilots and controllers see traffic. Yet the same broadcast can be collected by inexpensive receivers, sent across a global network, and displayed on a phone. That creates a question much bigger than one celebrity wedding. If a billionaire uses ownership companies, charter operators, alternate identifiers, private terminals, and professional security, can the aircraft still be followed? And if it can, what does the track actually prove? This is not a reconstruction of Taylor Swift's travel. We will not show a tail number, identify a guest, or claim that a named person was aboard a specific airplane. Instead, we are going inside the system, the broadcast, the receiver network, the privacy programs, and the line between a public signal and a private person. Because the most important thing a flight tracker can reveal is also the thing it cannot. Taylor Swift did not create the flight tracking debate, but her experience pushed it into mainstream culture. In December 2023, lawyers representing Swift sent a cease and desist letter to tracker operator Jack Sweeney. The letter argued that publishing near real-time aircraft location information created a serious safety concern. Sweeney responded that his accounts used publicly available information. The dispute was not a final court ruling on every form of aircraft tracking. It was a collision between two realities. One, high-profile people face security risks that most travelers never experience. Two, aviation safety systems transmit information beyond the aircraft itself. By the time Swift and Kelce married at Madison Square Garden, the privacy operation on the ground offered a striking contrast. Barricades could control a sidewalk. Security could control a door. A private vehicle could use a protected entrance. Publicists could delay confirmation. The choice of venue made that contrast even sharper. Madison Square Garden sits above one of the busiest transportation hubs in the country, surrounded by hotels, office towers, public streets, and constant foot traffic. A remote estate can create distance. An arena in Midtown Manhattan has to create control in the middle of visibility. That is why the wedding works as a test case. It shows what extraordinary ground security can accomplish and where the security team's authority ends. But none of those measures rewrites the physics of a radio broadcast. That does not mean a tracker can identify every passenger. It means the security problem changes once an aircraft becomes part of the story. The public sees a moving icon and assumes it is simple. In reality, that icon is the end of a chain involving satellites, avionics, antennas, volunteer receivers, servers, registration databases, and human inference. To understand what can be hidden, we have to start with what the airplane is required to say. A DSB stands for Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast. Automatic, because the system transmits without a pilot manually reporting every position. Dependent, because the aircraft depends on satellite navigation for its position. Surveillance, because the information helps create an air traffic picture. And broadcast, because the aircraft sends the message outward. According to the Federal Aviation Administration, ADS-B out can transmit GPS-derived location, altitude, ground speed, and other flight information once per second. Inside the aircraft, a position source determines where the airplane is. The avionics package formats that information. The transponder and antenna broadcast it. Nearby equipped aircraft and ground infrastructure can use the signal to improve situational awareness. In most controlled United States airspace, properly equipped aircraft must use ADS-B out. That requirement exists for safety and efficiency, not celebrity surveillance. But radio signals do not know who is listening. A suitable receiver within range may be able to collect the broadcast. That receiver might belong to official infrastructure. It might also belong to an aviation enthusiast, a university, or someone contributing data to a commercial tracking network. The airplane is not sending a polished app screen. It is sending a repeated technical message. What the public recognizes as a flight tracker appears only after other systems collect, process, and enrich that signal. Imagine 4 stages. First, the aircraft broadcasts. Second, a ground receiver hears the signal. Third, a network sends the observation to servers that compare it with other observations. Fourth, a website or application turns the result into a visual track. Services can combine aircraft broadcasts with schedule information, route data, registration records, and other databases. Multiple receivers can improve coverage and help follow an aircraft across a region. The cleaner the network, the more continuous the public picture can appear. Coverage is built receiver by receiver. One antenna may see an aircraft clearly and lose it behind terrain or distance. A second receiver can pick up the same broadcast from another angle. When thousands of observations arrive at a network, software can sort timestamps, remove obvious errors, and assemble a more coherent track. That process can look almost magical on a consumer screen. It is not magic. It is a large, distributed listening system operating on messages the aircraft sends into open air. But the simplicity of the screen hides the complexity beneath it. A gap on a consumer tracker does not automatically mean the aircraft vanished. The airplane may have moved beyond receiver coverage. A platform may have filtered the display. Data may be delayed or incomplete. An identifier may not map cleanly to an owner. The aircraft may be operating under a charter company or another call sign. And the appearance of a complete line does not prove that every underlying assumption is correct. This is the first discipline of responsible analysis. Separate the radio observation from the story placed on top of it. The signal may support a conclusion that an aircraft was active in a region. It does not, by itself, reveal why the aircraft moved or who was sitting inside. This distinction is where viral tracking stories often become unreliable. An aircraft can move without its owner. It can fly empty to pick up passengers. It can reposition after dropping them off. It can carry crew to a maintenance facility. It can operate for a charter customer. It can be leased, managed, or shared through a structure that separates the name on a record from the person on a seat. Even an aircraft closely associated with a public figure may be used in ways that have nothing to do with that person. The track can establish a machine's movement. Passenger identity requires separate evidence. That evidence might come from a confirmed statement, clearly documented public appearance, licensed arrival footage, or reliable reporting. Without it, connecting an aircraft to a person is an inference. That matters in this story. Public reporting confirmed a wedding at Madison Square Garden. Real photographs documented the venue, barricades, media presence, and public marquee. Those facts establish the event. They do not establish that any particular aircraft belonged to a guest, arrived for the wedding, or carried Taylor Swift or Travis Kelce. A sophisticated documentary should not hide uncertainty because certainty makes a better thumbnail. The honest version is stronger. Aircraft activity can be visible while the passenger remains unknown. Now return to Madison Square Garden. The confirmed facts are powerful enough without inventing a flight. There was a wedding. The venue was Madison Square Garden. The perimeter drew police, media, and public attention. The marquee later made the celebration unmistakable. Aviation activity around New York during the same period would establish exactly that. Aviation activity around New York. It would not prove that an aircraft was connected to the wedding. It would not prove who owned the trip. It would not prove who was aboard. And it would not justify publishing a live movement pattern for a person already facing security concerns. The mainstream hook is Taylor Swift. The documentary value is learning where the evidence stops: public signal, reported event, aircraft activity, passenger identity, not proven. This boundary protects accuracy as much as privacy. It keeps a dramatic story from becoming a false accusation. It also exposes why flight tracking debates are so difficult. The data can be technically real while the human interpretation is wrong. Inference is not proof. The Privacy ICAO Address program addresses a different problem. Every ADS-B broadcast includes an aircraft identity address. That address can help connect a received signal to registration information. For eligible United States registered aircraft using the applicable equipment, PIA can assign a temporary alternate ICAO address. The goal is to make quick public identification more difficult. The aircraft still broadcasts. Compatible receivers may still collect the position, altitude, and movement, but the alternate address can weaken the easy link between the signal and the registered aircraft. Think of it as changing the label, not silencing the transmission. PIA also has operational boundaries. The FAA states that the alternate address is intended for applicable United States managed airspace. The registered address is required when operating beyond that coverage. The alternate address cannot simply be changed in flight whenever an operator wants a new identity. PIA therefore creates meaningful friction. It can prevent a casual observer from moving instantly from a broadcast to a public registration record. But friction is not disappearance. A determined analyst may still compare timing, routes, aircraft performance, airport observations, and other public clues. Each additional clue can increase confidence, but it can also increase the risk of a false conclusion. The responsible rule remains the same. Do not turn technical possibility into passenger certainty. High-profile travelers rarely depend on one tool. They build a stack. An aircraft may be owned through a limited liability company. A separate operator may manage it. A charter provider may supply lift when using the familiar aircraft would attract attention. Third-party call signs can separate an operational identity from a public name. On the ground, security teams can stagger vehicles, use private terminals, vary arrival times, and limit who knows the complete movement plan. Public communication can be delayed until the traveler is no longer at the location being discussed. Charter can be especially powerful because the airplane used for one trip may have no durable public association with the traveler. A managed fleet can substitute another aircraft when maintenance, positioning, or security requires it. A traveler can also arrive by one mode of transportation and leave by another. Each substitution weakens the pattern an outside observer expects to find. But it also creates more operational participants. Dispatchers, pilots, ground handlers, and terminal staff still need enough information to perform their jobs safely. The goal is controlled disclosure, not zero information. Each layer attacks a different link in the identification chain. Ownership structure complicates the public record. Charter complicates the relationship between traveler and aircraft. Alternate identifiers complicate the relationship between signal and registration. Security teams complicate the relationship between aircraft and person. Delayed publication reduces the danger of real-time exposure. Together, these measures can make association much harder. They still do not guarantee that an aircraft becomes invisible. Airports have workers. Terminals have cameras. Radio signals reach receivers. Aircraft need fuel, maintenance, crews, and legal operating records. Privacy is a stack, not a cloak. So, can a billionaire hide a private plane? The answer depends on what hide means. An operator can obscure ownership. A traveler can use charter instead of a familiar aircraft. LADD can limit display through participating data paths. PIA can make a received signal harder to identify quickly. Security teams can separate the aircraft from the person. Delayed reporting can reduce the danger of real-time exposure. Those measures can make identity, ownership, and association substantially harder to establish. But an equipped aircraft operating where ADS-B out is required may still transmit its safety broadcast. Independent receivers may still hear it. Airports and aviation systems still create operational evidence. The aircraft can become difficult to identify without becoming physically silent. That is the tension inside the system. A DSB was built so aircraft could be seen for safety. The privacy problem came with the broadcast. The system does not reveal everything. It reveals a machine moving through airspace. The rest of the story requires evidence, restraint, and an honest label for what remains unknown. You can obscure identity. You can obscure ownership. You can obscure association. You cannot always make the aircraft's safety signal disappear. So, can a billionaire hide a private plane? The answer depends on what hide means. An operator can obscure ownership. A traveler can use charter instead of a familiar aircraft. LADD can limit display through participating data paths. PIA can make a received signal harder to identify quickly. Security teams can separate the aircraft from the person. Delayed reporting can reduce the danger of real-time exposure. Those measures can make identity, ownership, and association substantially harder to establish. But an equipped aircraft operating where ADSB out is required may still transmit its safety broadcast. Independent receivers may still hear it. Airports and aviation systems still create operational evidence. The aircraft can become difficult to identify without becoming physically silent. That is the tension inside the system. A DSB was built so aircraft could be seen for safety. The privacy problem came with the broadcast. The system does not reveal everything. It reveals a machine moving through airspace. The rest of the story requires evidence, restraint, and an honest label for what remains unknown. You can obscure identity. You can obscure ownership. You can obscure association. You cannot always make the aircraft's safety signal disappear. This is The Empty Leg. Subscribe for the systems, economics, and hidden infrastructure behind private aviation. And in the next investigation, we will go deeper inside the flight tracking system, from the antenna on the ground to the moving aircraft on your screen. Because in private aviation, the most valuable detail is often the one hiding in plain sight.